I'm reading from the book All the Women of the Bible, and this is part 2 of the Ephraimite, Levite's concubine, and the price of honor. But his first wife, the girl began, a frown marring her beauty, has her own problems, rejoined her grandmother tartly. Make it your business to reassure her. Be her friend. Learn from her what you've obviously not learned from us. How to be a real woman and a real wife. You'll not be sorry if you do, and if you don't, you won't last. But my honor, she objected. That's not honor, dear girl, the old woman answered. That's pride. Real honor means keeping your word no matter what, and you gave yours to him when you married him. Real honor will keep you in one piece no matter what happens, even if you should die in the doing. But your honor, it's a fraud, love. It will kill your soul, and no matter what you think it gives you, the price is too high for anyone to pay. The girl did not answer. She suspected her grandmother was right, but not for the world would she admit it aloud, not even to herself. Instead, she shrugged again, gathered her wounded sensibilities around her like a cloak, and swept from the room. Her grandmother, watching her, sighed. No good will come of this, she murmured. No good at all. To everyone's surprise and the enormous relief of her father and grandmother, the Levite from Ephraim appeared on their doorstep the next day, seeking to make peace with his wife, their daughter. Her father was effusive in his welcome. Her grandmother was determined that the girl should behave sensibly. The girl herself was of two minds. She still wanted to punish the Levite for his dishonoring of her, but even more, she feared what would happen if she refused his overtures of peace. Her grandmother's warnings had impressed her, little as she liked to acknowledge it, and for once she did as the old lady had so strongly suggested. Taking pains to present herself as hurt and bewildered, frightened, but definitely not angry, she managed to charm her husband thoroughly, and so they made their peace with one another. On the 5th day after his arrival, surfeited with the feasting his rejoicing father-in-law had insisted upon, the Levite packed up his wife and her baggage on the mules, and with his servants began the long ride back to Ephraim. They had no trouble on the journey that first day, except for finding a place to stay the night. They had gotten as far as Gibeah, for the Levite had been unwilling to trust to the party's safety in the Jebusite-held settlement in eastern Jerusalem, but insisted on getting to an Israelite settlement. It looked as though they would have to camp in the town square, for no one stepped up to offer them hospitality, even though they had sufficient provisions for themselves and their beasts. Then an old man, coming back into town from working in the fields, saw them. It developed that he too was from Ephraim. Though he had settled in Gibeah, the local people, all Benjaminites, considered him an interloper. So he was glad to have someone to talk to, and equally glad to offer hospitality to those who, if not kinsmen, were at least from his old home area. The evening went well at first. The girl was accepted as part of the Levite's household and found their host's daughter, a charming girl, somewhat younger than she, a delightful companion whom she went out of her way to charm. The Levite was pleased with her, and she often smiled at him. Her resentment of his previous dishonoring of her was still simmering beneath the surface. But after her 4 days at her father's house with him, her insecurities had faded. She felt she could, in time, displace the first wife and so avenge in her honor. But she was in no hurry to begin. Time enough, she thought complacently, when he has come to need me so much that she will be expendable. She's getting old. It won't be that long. And meanwhile, I'll see to it that he really gets to like me. A lot. Oddly enough, some of the conversation at the table turned on the question of honor. The man who had taken them in spoke of his doing so as a matter of honor. Hospitality was not optional. If one were a man of honor, nor were its obligations lightly to be disregarded. The host was obliged, it emerged, to protect anyone whom he had taken under his roof or fed at his table, even if it cost him his life or what he held dearest in the world. The Levite agreed. Indeed, the guest had similar obligations to his host. Never must he allow anyone to harm his host. Certainly he himself, in accepting hospitality, had put the obligation of doing his host no harm on both himself and all his kin. And he too was obliged to come to his host's defense, even should he die for it or lose what was close to his heart. The girl found herself becoming uncomfortable. With these standards, she had clearly had no business running away from her husband in the first place. And his congress with his first wife was an obligation of his honor, for he had taken her into his home as his own. In fact, any hope of his fidelity to herself rested on his fidelity to his first wife. For if he could lay aside his honor with his first wife, he could do the same to her. And then where would I be, she thought, shaken. Truly her grandmother had been right. For some honor, the price was just too high. Her musing was shattered with the banging at the door and the shouts of the drunken ne'er-do-wells, so the host described them, of the town. "Bring him out," shouted one, "the tall, handsome one." "Yeah," slurred another at the top of his voice. "We want to get to know him." "Hurry up," urged another. "Send him out. You can have him back after if you're not done." Their host paled. Grimly he rose and slipped out the door, closing it firmly behind him and placing his back solidly against it. "Gentlemen," he remonstrated. "Brothers, no. Don't even think of such a thing. He's my guest. This is a crime." The crowd rumbled, growing more rowdy as the moments passed. The host's argument had not impressed them. "Now, get him to us now," one shouted, and the rest surged forward, echoing him. "Wait," commanded the host, the edge of desperation in his voice. "I'll tell you what. My daughter is a lovely virgin. I'll give her to you to do with what you please, but leave my guest unharmed." Inside, the host's daughter went white with shock. So did the Levite's concubine. Honor, she thought. Honor? That's not honor. That's crazy. They'll kill her, the drunken louts. But before any of them could speak, the crowd had shouted, "No! Give us the man! Give us the man!" In the tumult, the host slipped back inside. He looked at the door. No, it would not withstand the assaults of the mob outside. They would all die. He looked up and met the Levite's eyes, but before he could say anything, the Levite spoke. "My brother," he said, "let me try to save us. My honor is involved here too." And again, we're running out of time, so here we go to part 3.